Prabhupada. Mam Namo Vishnu Braya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tiramane Namaste Saraswatindeve Kauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Askatya De Siddharne. Today we're going to read from the Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 14, Three Modes of Material Nature, text number 26. Mam shayo vyavicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatitaitan brahmabhuyaya kalpate. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. One who engages in full devotional service and failing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. To Prabhupada's purport. This verse is a reply to Arjuna's third question. What is the means of obtaining to the transcendental position? As explained before, the material world is acting under the spell of the modes of material nature. One should not be disturbed by the activities of the modes of nature. Instead of putting his consciousness into such activities, he may transfer his consciousness to Krishna activities. Krishna activities are known as Bhakti Yoga, always acting for Krishna. This includes not only Krishna, but his different plenary expansions such as Rama and Narayana. He has innumerable expansions. He who is engaged in the service of any of the forms of Krishna or of his plenary expansions is considered to be transcendently situated. One should also note that all the forms of Krishna are fully transcendental, blissful, full of knowledge, and eternal. Such personalities of Godhead are omnipotent and omniscient, and they possess all transcendental qualities. So if one engages himself in the service of Krishna or his plenary expansions with unfailing determination, although these modes of material nature are very difficult to overcome, one can overcome them easily. This has already been explained in the 7th chapter. One who surrenders unto Krishna at once surmounts the influence of the modes of material nature. To be in Krishna consciousness or in devotional service means to acquire equality with Krishna. The Lord says that his nature is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. And the living entities are part and parcel of the Supreme, as gold particles are part of a gold mine. Thus, the living entity in his spiritual position is as good as gold, as good as Krishna in quality. The difference of individuality continues, and otherwise, there would be no question of Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga means that the Lord is there, the devotee is there, and the activity of exchange of love between the Lord and the devotee is there. Therefore, the individuality of two persons is present in the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the individual person. Otherwise, there would be no meaning to Bhakti Yoga. If one is not situated in the same transcendental position with the Lord, one cannot serve the Supreme Lord. To be a personal assistant to a king, one must acquire the qualifications. Thus, the qualification is to become Brahman, or freed from all material contamination. It is said in the Vedic literature, Brahmaiva san Brahma yeti. One can attain the Supreme Brahman by becoming Brahman. This means that one must qualitatively become one with Brahman. By attainment of Brahman, one does not lose his eternal Brahman identity as an individual soul. So the text again. Om Chayo Vyavatarina Bhakti Yogena Sevate Sagunan Samatitaitam Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service and failing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature, thus comes to the level of Brahman. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhute Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Vicharane Nirvishesha Shnunvadi Paskadyade Satarane Oma Gana Timanandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chaksur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Welcome everyone. Here in this particular verse, Krishna is repeating what he'll repeat many times in the Bhagavad Gita. Actually, Bhagavad Gita is quite simple, but one has to understand by assimilating the knowledge. For that reason, Krishna is explaining basically the same philosophy throughout every chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Philosophy is that, as we heard before, we're eternal, and Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we have an eternal relationship with him. Either we have a relationship with him through the material nature, or we have a relationship with him through the super soul, or we have a relationship with him through his personal identity. That's up to us to choose which kind of relationship we want to have with him. Indirect, through the material energy, direct through the super soul as a guide, or an eternal personal relation with Krishna in this form as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But in order to establish or reestablish that relationship, as it says, Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhu Kavanoi Shravanadi Shudachite Koryo Udoy. 1 second, please. That love for Krishna is within everyone's heart. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema. We're all Nitya Siddhas. In the sense that although we're misidentifying ourselves with this gross and subtle material energy, but we're actually not affected by it. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Anadidvam Nirgunadvat Paramatmayam Avyam Sharira Stopikonteya Nakaroti Nanalipyate. That those who can see with the eyes of eternity can see that the soul is eternal, transcendental, and beyond the modes of material nature. Despite contact with the material body, or Arjuna, the soul is neither entangled nor is he doing anything. Well, it certainly appears to us that we're entangled, and it certainly appears to us that we're doing so many things. So that's called illusion. Now, of course, we can't just decide one day, I don't want to be an illusion, and wave our hands and illusion will go away. Because we're not in control of illusion. Illusion right now is in control of us. Therefore, as Krishna says, Daivi Yesha Gunamayi, Mama Maya Daratya, Mameva Ye Prapadyante, Mayam Etam Tarantite. That this divine energy of mine, in other words, Krishna is not competing with his material energy, with Maya. It's not that, as sometimes some religions think, that God is a nice person, but he has a competitor called the devil. And that there's an eternal competition between the devil and Krishna. And at the present moment, it appears that the devil is winning and God is having a hard time keeping up. No, Mama Maya, Krishna says, it is my energy and it works under his direction. Maya Dakshana Prakriti Sute Sajarachram is all going on by Krishna's direction. But for the living entities, the souls, ourselves in the material nature, it's impossible, practically speaking, to overcome it. But one who takes shelter of Krishna, he can easily cross beyond it. Quote, easily. I mean, obviously, sometimes it doesn't appear to us to be 100% easy. But that's part of the process. In other words, if it was easy to cross beyond material nature, then we take everything very cheaply, especially Krishna. So Krishna doesn't want us to take him cheaply. He wants us to make some effort. So part of that effort means to learn how to understand things properly so that we don't become unnecessarily bewildered by our circumstances. The material nature is compared to a dream, but it's a very good dream. It's a very real dream. When Krishna creates a virtual reality, he does it very expertly. So in our dream, when we think a tiger is biting us, in this dream, we feel the tiger biting us. It's not we just dreaming it. We feel it. We think it. Our friends agree with us that the tiger is biting us. We're all trying to kick the tiger. It's a very expertly created dream. But after all, a dream is only a dream. Now we have a number of dreams. We have our daydream, which is our present dream. And we have our night dreams. The only difference is that the daydream lasts a little bit longer than the night dream. Otherwise, they're exactly the same. So, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has explained different types of knowledge to help us understand our circumstances. He begins with explaining to us that we're not this body, which is the basic principle of understanding spiritual life. And he says that's confidential knowledge. But then throughout Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is explaining even more confidential knowledge, such as knowledge of the super soul, knowledge of devotional service. And in this chapter, Krishna explains what he considers to be the best knowledge, which is even more valuable to us than the most confidential knowledge. The most confidential knowledge being pure devotional service. But in order to engage in pure devotional service, we have to wake up from our dream. Not exactly wake up from I shouldn't say that. In order to engage in actual pure devotional service, unmotivated and uninterrupted, then ultimately we have to become to the Brahma Bhuta platform, as Prabhupada mentions here. To actually serve Krishna directly, we have to become Brahman. We have to become like Krishna again. We have to act as Brahman. In other words, we're already Brahman, but unfortunately, we're not acting like Brahman. We're acting as if we're a material body or a material mind. But that's all right. Now, if we act in devotional service, which is ultimately the process given to us, is quite simple. Prabhupada said, chant Hare Krishna, offer something to the deities, hear about Krishna. So the process is actually quite simple. Any sane person can engage in it. But at the same time, we have our conditioning. Now, Krishna has given us different processes to overcome our conditioning. Basically speaking, he summarizes as karma yoga, jnana yoga, astanga yoga, etc. Karma yoga being defined as, Prabhupada defines it different places differently. But more or less, it's the same idea as Prabhupada writes in the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. When one knows that the goal is Krishna, but one is attached to the results of one's activities, one is said to be acting in karma yoga. When one knows that the goal is Krishna, but he takes pleasure in mental speculation to understand Krishna, then he's said to be acting in jnana yoga. And when one knows the goal is Krishna and works completely to satisfy Krishna in devotional service, one is said to be acting in Buddha yoga or bhakti yoga. So it's a question of changing our consciousness, which is really up to us to more or less, first of all, understand things theoretically, and then try to desire to act practically. For instance, there are different stages to come to liberation. The first stage being, as Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavad Gita, under the verse, Yesham antagatam papam dhananam punya karmanam te dvandva mohaniramuktva ujante mam drida vrataha. Those who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, whose sinful actions are completely eradicated, engage in my devotional service with determination. So basically speaking, we're simply trying to come to the platform of engaging in pure devotional service or devotional service steadily, as mentioned in this verse, with determination, undeviated devotional service, with full enthusiasm. Now, in the beginning, as Prabhupada explains a summary of the different stages, in the beginning, when one takes to the process of devotional service and we're conditioned by our desiring different material circumstances, such as freedom from stress and material comfort. I mean, no one wants stress and pain. That's not why people come to devotional service. They heard that if you become a devotee, then you get a lot of stress and pain. They think, wow, that's fantastic. Let me join the Hare Krishna movement. Or as I said in one class, there's a saying in America, there's a little fairy rhyme. There's a rhyme. It goes that Mary had a little lamb. Its fleece was white as something, snow, that everywhere where Mary went, the lamb was sure to go. But in a religious movement where devotees are too much engaged sometimes, another saying is, Mary had a little lamb. It would have become a sheep. It joined the local temple and died from lack of sleep. So that's not the aim of the Hare Krishna movement. We're supposed to learn how to become free from anxiety, masuchaha, as Krishna says, free from distress. Now, distress is caused by, as it says in the Nectar of Devotion, sinful activity. That if one is in pure consciousness, there is no stress. There is no problem. Because one is situated on another platform of experience. But due to the reactions or our sinful activities, we misidentify ourselves with the gross and the subtle body, and we become in pain through misidentification and stress. It's called ahamkar. I am the car. That if you're driving on the street and another car hits your car, you jump out of the car and say, "You hit me, you hit me." The man says, "Calm down, please. I didn't hit you, I hit your car." "No, no, you hit me. Aham car. I am the car." Therefore, in the very beginning of devotional service, we're taught to follow the four regular principles, which I'm sure everyone knows. No illicit sex, no gambling, no meat eating, no intoxication. Because these, Prabhupada is explained, are the roots of accumulating more sinful activity, more reactions. And therefore, devotional service, for instance, we may be chanting at the beginning, Hare Krishna, or something similar. Sometimes Prabhupada said he hears the devotees chanting, and they sound like a hissing sound is coming out. Or we said, Shnik, Shnik, Ram, Ram, Day, 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 Hey, Kitty, Kitty, Hey, Kitty, Kitty, Kitty. Ram, 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 Day, 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 Day. So that's not the purest devotional service. But even if we're not chanting 100% without offense, still it lifts us a little bit above the ocean material existence. We may be completely conditioned by the material nature. We may have so many material desires, but by engaging in devotional service under the guidance of a representative of Krishna, if we make some effort, then we're lifted above the material energy. If one is drowning in the ocean of material existence, if someone comes and lifts ourselves 1 inch above the water, then at least we're not drowning. So devotional service is so nice. At least it lifts us up at least 1 inch above the ocean of material existence, even at the beginning. Therefore, even if one is committing offenses or has a difficult time struggling with one's material desire, still, if one engages in devotional service, one will lose one's taste for sinful activity. Then, as one becomes purified of these desires, because material existence simply means the wrong desires, that's all. It's not that we're changing the soul, we're changing the soul's desires. The soul doesn't have to change. It's not that the soul is, right now the cowherd boy, the soul is a cowherd boy, has a blue dress on, and we're trying to change it to an orange one. No, we're not trying to change the soul, we're trying to change our desires by giving the desire to serve Krishna rather than material energy. So, if we chant Hare Krishna and follow the principles that Srila Prabhupada has given us, then at least at the beginning we're lifted above the material energy. As long as we keep on following the principles, then we're safe. Srila Prabhupada once told Brahmananda Prabhu in the 60s that the only difference between yourself and myself is that I can't fall down, but you can. In other words, if we were constantly engaged in pure devotional service, we'd realize the perfection of our existence. But because we deviate, and why do we deviate? The beginning is because of sinful desires, and then as those become purified, we deviate because we have other objectives, not to fulfill sinful desires, but in order to find some comfort. we learn, hopefully we learn, that material comfort doesn't mean necessarily to have the latest electronic equipment, but ultimately real material comfort means to breathe in clean air, drink fresh water, have nice prasadam, and above everything, have a nice relation with Krishna and his devotees. It's not perfection, but it's certainly an elevation, because as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, the nasti buddhya yuktasya nacha yuktasya bhavanaha nacha bhaviyantak shantir ashantasya kutak sukham. That for one who's not in divine consciousness, they can have neither a controlled mind nor steady intelligence, without which there's no possibility of peace, and how can there be any happiness without peace? In other words, we're trying to become peaceful in spite of any circumstance. Now, one who knows how the material nature works better knows how to avoid necessary problems. If we eat the wrong food, we constantly breathe in the wrong air, we drink the wrong water. If you're in India and you decide that it's all divine and I can eat anything or drink anything, or live in Calcutta and breathe next to a factory, one will have some problems that one will have to take care of. So we try to understand how to live healthy lives and peaceful lives, especially above everything, serving devotees with love and affection makes the mind more peaceful and happy. And offending the devotees doesn't lead to a happy, peaceful life. So that's on the level of karma yoga, freedom from distress, and knowing how to live a happy life. This is a peaceful life. This is certainly advancement and will help us concentrate on Krishna more. The aim is not to get free from distress or to have a happy, peaceful life. The aim is to be able to concentrate upon Krishna by solving problems in the material existence or avoiding problems in the material existence. But above that, we have to develop knowledge, spiritual knowledge. So with a more peaceful mind, we can hear better. We can hear and we can understand better what's the value of what we're hearing and how to apply it within our everyday activities. Once the distress is solved, once our relationships are solved, once our material existence is more or less taken care of, the next thing is how to work in spiritual life throughout the day with the spiritual consciousness, so that one should become inquisitive how to do that. So all this comes about simply by chanting our rounds every day. Hopefully we have a morning program every day. We read Srila Prabhupada's books. And we keep on doing that, and then gradually we can progress from one level of consciousness to the next, one level of understanding, and we can go on to the next level through the process of pure devotional service. The process doesn't change, but our consciousness should change while we're doing the process. So one should become inquisitive how to remain steady in pure devotional service throughout the day, how to always think of Krishna and never forget him. How to always follow Srila Prabhupada's directions, which will help us remember Krishna and never forget him. Then, as one's inquisitiveness is solved, is satisfied by Krishna Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam, as Krishna gives us more and more intelligence, how to become steadier and more encouraged in devotional service, then the result is that one can see things in relationship to Krishna. One becomes detached from the things that draw the mind away from Krishna, and one feels a growing love for Krishna and for everyone and everything in relationship to Krishna. One becomes an actual jnani. Tesham jnani yukta nityukta ekabhaktir vishishite. Priyo hi jnanino nartam aham sacha mama priya. Krishna says that the jnanis are dear to him because their main interest is to please Krishna. So that's the four Kumaras situated on the platform. Liberation from our material conception. One identifies themselves as Krishna Das or Krishna Dasi, which is the whole purpose of initiation. It's to change our identity from a material identity to I am Gopi Bharata Pada Kamalayor Dasa Dasa Anudasa. I am now the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. And the initiation means to accept that and to work according to that. Not only for material interest, but ultimately for spiritual interest, under our spiritual identity. We may not realize if we're a gopi or a cowherd boy or a blade of grass. We don't know who we are actually. All we know is that we're Krishna's eternal servant, and being Krishna's eternal servant, we're eternally the servant of his servants also. Because Krishna is more pleased when we serve his servants than even when we serve him directly. That's possible. And the process goes on. But the process goes on after liberation. Now we're performing the process to become liberated. And at every stage of our development, the process is the same. Therefore, in Bhagavad Gita, in 18 chapters, Krishna says different things, but he always concludes with the same: do devotional service. It's not that in chapter 1, Krishna says devotional service. Chapter 2, he says devotional service. Chapter 3, he says, well, maybe you can do a little karma yoga. And in chapter 4, he says, well, no, just study all day long. In chapter 6, he says, why don't you go in the forest and meditate for a while, Arjuna? Come back when your mind's a little peaceful. No, throughout the entire Bhagavad Gita, Krishna recommends chapter after chapter the same process, pure devotional service. And pure devotional service means at different stages, different types of tolerance. Tolerate our sinful desires, tolerate our desires for excessive material happiness and comfort, tolerate our speculative minds, which are always seeking answers for things that have no importance, tolerate our desire to be prominent or think ourselves to be something special. And ultimately, when one can tolerate these things, then one can come to the platform of Ainandana Tanuja Kinkaram, Patitamam Vishame Bhavam Buddho, Kripaya Tavapada Pankaja, Stita Dali Sadrisham Vichintaya. Krishna, I wanted so many things. I even wanted to understand what the process of pure devotional service is, so that I can get liberated from material entanglement, material suffering, solve all my problems. But now I don't want any of these things. I just want to become situated as an atom at your lotus feet. I just want to please you. So that will naturally come as we identify ourselves as Krishna's servant and learn different types of tolerance on different levels of our spiritual advancement. And keep on chanting Hare Krishna in spite of whatever desires are uncovered within our heart. Sometimes it appears that our consciousness is like onions. You peel one layer of onions and you still have onion. You think, what happened? I thought I was making progress. But it looks like it's just one onion after another. What's going on? No, actually, we're making progress. We're peeling away the onion, and one day there won't be any more onion. But we have to understand that there are different levels of material consciousness, and they're just being uncovered. They're not being created. It's not that I was a pure soul before I came to the Hare Krishna movement, and in contact with the devotees, I became an onion. No, we're just uncovering the deeper layers of our material consciousness, that's all. So that's progress. We should understand what they are. We should understand how we've gone through desiring sinful life. To tell someone in the beginning, to give up even simple things like smoking seems to them to be like trying to jump over Mount Everest. Jumping over Mount Everest is quite a task. But after some time in the Hare Krishna movement, there's no more Mount Everest. You don't have to jump over it. If you ask someone who's a little bit advanced in devotional service, please come to me. I got free tickets to McDonald's, and I'd like to give you a Big Mac for your birthday. Most devotees would not be very much excited by such a prospect. Srila Prabhupada was walking in the pier in San Francisco. Pier means where people go fishing or where the boats come in. And one fisherman came up to Srila Prabhupada with a big fish, holding a big fish, and offered it to Srila Prabhupada. And Srila said, no, it's all right. You enjoy. And then Prabhupada proceeded to walk further, and he turned to his disciples who were with him and said, and suffer. So Srila Prabhupada was not attracted by fish. But for a person who's addicted to such things, it seems impossible to give it up. But by the strength of chanting Hare Krishna, especially in this age, in pure devotional service, these things after a while are considered to be tuchava. But then the next layer of desires come, and we wonder, last week I thought I was a pure devotee. Wherever I walked, I thought I had a halo over my head. And now I'm seeing that there's two little horns coming up. Where did they come from? No, it's not that we're not making progress. It's just that there's another set of desires we have to face and overcome. And we overcome them by the same process. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And one day when we overcome all these different layers of problems and anarthas, then one day we'll chant Hare Krishna and we'll ask sincerely to Srimati Radharani and Krishna to please engage me in your pure, loving, devotional service. That's all we want. and then Krishna will reciprocate and will be engaged in Krishna's pure devotional service. But that may take some time, because it's just like if we put an iron in the fire, then the iron grows hotter and hotter and hotter, and then one day the iron will become just like fire. Now, if we take the iron out of the fire, it will cool down a little bit until we put it back in the fire again. And if we keep it in the fire, then eventually it'll become like fire. But if we keep on taking it out, then it will take some time before the iron becomes like the fire. So similarly, the art of devotional service, mam chayo vyabhicharena, how to stay constantly engaged in pure devotional service. And that's what Prabhupada has given us. Now, it's not impossible to do that without living in a temple. In other words, it's not that one has to live in a Hare Krishna temple because Krishna is there. And outside the temple, who knows who's there? Maybe the devil's there. So Krishna is everywhere. Now, living in a temple and associating with the devotees in the temple has its advantage, but not for everyone. Generally speaking, it's very difficult to move your 10 children into the temple and do devotional service at the same time. So it's not practical for everyone. But that's not an impediment, because it just so happens Krishna is everywhere. And whatever we're doing, if we engage our energies in Krishna's service, which means for householders, for instance, which most of the devotees don't live in a temple, but for those who are not living in a temple, then it also means that we should have a regular program. As I've said many times, now it is very difficult to be healthy if you only have one meal a week. Could you imagine if your doctor said, I want you to become healthy, so I think you should have one meal a week, or even better than that, only on days of festivals, Janmashtami and Gaur Purnim, should you eat. Otherwise, you should fast. That will be very difficult to stay healthy. But generally speaking, no one has a problem eating every day. For instance, sometimes the devotees would tell Srila Prabhupada, we're even living in the temple. Srila Prabhupada, for instance, Prabhupada came to Los Angeles one year, 1970, and he noticed that there were some problems going on in the temple. For instance, he came into his room and he saw, after they cleaned it, and he saw his picture was upside down. He didn't take that as a very good sign. He went to take Charanamrita, and there is salt in the Charanamrita instead of sugar. He didn't take that as a very good sign. And he asked who put salt in the Charanamrita, and the Mataji just started to giggle. He didn't take that as a very good sign. And there are other things that were going on. So Prabhupada asked the devotees one day during class, he said, who's chanting 16 rounds? And only some devotees raised their hands. And the devotees said, Prabhupada asked, well, why aren't you chanting 16 rounds? He said, because we have too much service. So Prabhupada wasn't very impressed by too much service. What kind? So Prabhupada said, well, are you eating every day? Are you taking prasadam? Do you have time for taking prasadam? No problem. What about sleeping? Do you have time for sleeping? Oh, yes, we get plenty of sleep, Prabhupada. So Prabhupada said, well, chant 16 rounds, and if necessary, don't eat or sleep, stop, minimize your eating and sleeping. He took that as more important than eating and then sleeping. Therefore, it's a question of emphasis. Whatever our circumstances are, whether we're in the temple or outside the temple, set our priorities so at least we're getting spiritual nourishment every day. If we're working and accumulating money, at least some of the money, of course, some of the money will go to pay for our maintenance, which is if we're having a morning program with our family, that's also our house and our family members. They're all part of a temple and should be taken nicely care of. But not that we have to live in a palace and drive a Mercedes to go to our grocery store. No, some of our energy should go for the preaching also, expanding Krishna consciousness, and not unnecessarily engaging ourselves so that we don't have, or our family doesn't have time for spiritual life. So if we do that, then gradually our consciousness will become purified. And then one gradually, not all at once, but gradually, will understand the value of chanting Hare Krishna. That Krishna and his name, being non-different, will be revealed to us. And when we chant Hare Krishna, at first we'll just remember Krishna, which is not exactly impossible to chant Hare Krishna and remember Krishna. As I've said many times, if we chant Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck, I don't know if in Russia or in Poland they have Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck. Do they have that in Poland? And Russia, they have Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck? Mickey Mishka. Yes.
Mishka Mickey.
Mishka Mickey. So at least from my childhood, because I was brainwashed from my childhood, we had, when I grew up, television was a novelty. That was a little after the dinosaurs roamed the earth. But they were television was just becoming popular. And there were where I lived, there were 3 channels. One of them didn't work. And the other 2, very simple programs. So whatever program was on, especially on Saturday, every child in the world, in America, was watching. So one of them was the Mickey Mouse Club. So from the beginning of my childhood, we were the one club that everyone belonged to, the one club that united everyone was the Mickey Mouse Club. But in the Mickey Mouse Club, there were 2 sides. One side was full of children sitting in a stand who are fans of Mickey Mouse. And the other side were children sitting in another set of stands, seated. They were fans of Donald Duck. So they have a contest of chanting. Not the Maha Mantra, but the animal mantras. Mickey Mouse is one chant, and the other one is Donald Duck. Now, we had no problem remembering who Mickey Mouse was and who Donald Duck was. Those who were chanting were very enthusiastic, and I'm sure they were visualizing and meditating on one mouse with big ears, and the other one was a duck with a big orange beak. So if we can spontaneously remember a mouse and a duck by simply chanting some words, certainly if we chant Hare Krishna, we can also remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who holds a flute as his form of Shyamasundar, and Srimati Radharani, the beautiful servant of Krishna. It's not impossible. But that may take some time. But if we try to chant attentively, we follow the process of hearing about Krishna, hearing about his name, his form, his quality, his associates, and their activities, then these memories will come spontaneous. It's not that we have to artificially remember these things. As I wrote to Srila Prabhupada one time, that when I'm chanting Hare Krishna, can I try to remember Krishna's pastimes? Because it seemed to me more interesting than just chanting. I thought, well, maybe I should just remember his pastimes. That would be, I can get my rounds done quicker with less problems. And I thought, when I wrote to Srila Prabhupada, I thought he'd think, well, I'm so proud to have an advanced devotee disciple who can remember Krishna's pastimes when they're chanting. I thought Prabhupada would appreciate that very much. But instead, Prabhupada wrote me back. He said, no. He said, don't try to remember Krishna's pastimes when we're chanting. He said, you should simply chant and listen. But if the pastimes come spontaneously, that's very nice. Not that we're artificially trying to remember them. So that will come in time by the process of devotional service. So that the time will come, we'll be able to hear when we're chanting. We'll actually be able to listen to our own voice when we're chanting and appreciate how nice it sounds, how nice Krishna's name is. Then the time will come when we'll actually be understanding that we should chant and ask Srimati Radharani, ask Lord Krishna to engage us in a loving service. And the result is that we'll spontaneously remember that we're actually chanting to Srimati Radharani and Krishna, not to the force. They have some impersonal energy. They're actually chanting to persons, people, spiritual people. And then they spontaneously remember Krishna, what he looks like, what Srimati Radharani looks like. It may not be a perfect representative, but at least something will be there that will gain our spiritual memory through the process. And be able to remember the deities, be able to remember paintings, be able to remember our descriptions. These things will come spontaneously. So we have a lot to look forward to. Just by following the simple process of pure devotional service, we can look forward to a change of our, not only our, change of our perspective on things, change of our memory, change of our identification, change of our desires. These things will gradually change if we just continue on with the process of pure devotional service, guided by Srila Prabhupada and his representatives. Then these things will happen gradually over the course of time, if we remain steady on the path, in spite of whatever obstacles may appear to be there. Gradually, our relation with Krishna will be revived, and our relationship with the material energy will be forgotten. So I'll stop there. Thank you. I'll just repeat the verse again. Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samitichaitam brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One is engaged in pure devotional service and failing in all circumstances, but once transcends the modes of material nature and comes to the level of Brahman. So thank you. Any questions? Comments? Challenges? We'll start with Parthasarthi, then we'll go to Lira, and then to Agnihotra.
Thank you very much, Guru Maharaj, for the class. Here, where I live, I don't have a car, and to go to the temple is a little bit inconvenient because it takes me 2 hours. and on the way back, I don't have transport to come back. So I have DTs. I attend my DTs. I attend the lordships on regular basis. I cook for them, and then I have a small program. So some devotees say to me that you must go to the temple to service. I think that I'm doing service here as much as I can. I look after Tulsi Maharani. I think that
Well, that's
not
good.
enough, but yeah.
Well, if you can't go to the temple, then Krishna has at least come to your home. So he's so kind. He might be getting, I don't know, you're a good cook. He might be getting good prasadam at your house. So maybe that's why. In any case, Haridas Thakur couldn't go to the temple, but somehow or another he made progress in devotional service. Sanatana Goswami also couldn't come to the temple. He didn't visit, but still he made progress because Haridas Thakur chanted his rounds every day, all 180 of them. So he had no problem making spiritual advancement. So anywhere we can perform devotional service. One Brahmin, he didn't have any money to do deity worship, but he sat and he learned the process of meditating on deity worship, and he performed it within his mind. And he did it for many years. And then one day, after cooking sweet rice within his mind, he wanted to see if it was cool enough. So he touched it within his mind with his finger, and he came out of his meditation and saw that his finger was burnt. And in Vaikuntha, Lord Narayan was laughing, and the Lakshmis were wondering, why is Lord Narayan laughing? So the Lord Narayan sent a Vaikuntha airplane, picked up the Brahmin, brought him to Vaikuntha, and there the Brahmin told his story of how he was serving Krishna through meditation. So in any circumstance, we can serve Krishna if we want to. Bhakti Lira?
Thank you for sharing, Guru Maharaj. Thank you for your
Харе Кришна, дорогой Гуру Махарадж, преданные. Я хотела бы спросить, немножко мне непонятно, Гуру Махарадж. Вот тут Кришна говорит, что тот, кто целиком посвящает себя преданному служению, он преодолевает влияние гун материальной природы и достигает уровня брамана. Но вот это достижение уровня брамана, это же гуна благости, я правильно понимаю? То есть здесь Кришна говорит о том, что... Да-да.
Lera is quoting the text, and she's saying that here Krishna says that the devotee who is fully, serves him, he overcomes the influence of the three modes of material nature. So overcoming the influence of three modes of material nature, this is still the level of Brahman. Is that, she wants you to clarify, when we overcome the three modes of material nature and come to the level of Brahman, which says in this verse, is that the level of the pure sattva, or is that the level of sattva, or what level is that Brahman level referred here?
Well, that's Shuddha Sattva, but it's not the highest level. Because Krishna will say in the next verse that I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is eternal, transcendental, and beyond the modes of nature. So Krishna, in the Bhagavad Gita, Brahman is the beginning of pure devotional service. As we engage in pure devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, we come to Brahmabhuta stage. That's called Nishta, liberation from material concepts. Or in other words, Krishna in the 18th chapter says, Brahmabhuta prasanatma, nishoshiti, nikangshati, samak sarveshu bhuteshu, mad bhaktim lapate param. On that stage of devotional service, we become joyful. We don't lament and we don't hanker after anything material. And we see all living entities as Krishna's eternal servants. That qualifies us to enter into pure devotional service. Bhakti mam abhijananti yavan yashasmi tatvataha tato mam tatvato gyatva vishite tadanantara. One who's engaged in pure devotional service, Bhakti mam abhijananti yasmin tatvataha, with full knowledge, with full consciousness, and tatvataha, with perfect understanding. One can understand me as I am, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service, and when one is in full consciousness of me, by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. So Brahmabhuta stage is Nishtha, fixed in Krishna's service, and that will develop through the stages of Ruchi and Asakti, Bhava, and Prema. Just like if you keep the iron in the fire, it'll get hotter and hotter and hotter until it'll become fire. So after liberation from material concepts, one doesn't deviate from devotional service anymore, and one advances towards Krishna Prema. So what's described in this verse that I read is the Brahmabhuta stage, which is we come about it through undeviated devotional service, unmotivated and undeviated. And from there we go on with unmotivated, undeviated devotional service, and we develop through the higher stages of devotional service, through ruchi, taste, to attachment, asakti, to bhava, to emotion, to prema, to pure love. Понимаете? Okay. Agnihotra?
Харе Кришна, Гуру Махарадж, спасибо большое за лекцию. Хотел у вас спросить, вы в лекции говорили о том, что важно в повседневной жизни, вы надеетесь, что у нас есть утренние программы, чтение Бхагаватам и 16 кругов мы повторяем. И также хотел у вас спросить о повседневной жизни ученика, который получил посвящение, вот, каковы отношения или какие отношения он должен поддерживать со своим духовным учителем, потому что бывает так, что ученик получает посвящение и больше его никто не видел.
Maharaj, thank you so much for the lecture. And the question is like this. So in your lecture, you have mentioned that you're hoping that besides chanting 16 rounds, all your disciples have morning programs and worship the deities. And I wanted to ask you, sometimes what should be the relationship of the initiated devotee with his spiritual master? Because sometimes devotees come, they get initiated, and then not the spiritual master, not their immediate friends or anybody has never heard from them again. What should be encouraged of the initiated devotees in their relationship with their spiritual master?
At least once every 10 years, they should write a letter. The fact is that spiritual master means he's a representative of Krishna. And Krishna is in the heart of all living entities. Spiritual master, whether it be a Shiksha Guru or a Diksha Guru or a Vartma Pradaksha Guru, is simply a representative of Krishna. So what's expected? Krishna has expressed himself to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna, the super soul, has appeared and told Arjuna what he wants. So it's expected that when you take initiation from a spiritual master, you're actually connecting yourself with the disciple succession and ultimately with Krishna. So it's expected that you make progress in surrendering to Krishna, as he advised in Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. So that's expected. Now, if you disappear and you don't read Prabhupada's books, you don't associate with the devotees, you don't chant Hare Krishna, you don't live in a holy place, you don't try to spiritualize your atmosphere, then what happens? Well, no one knows what happened to you because you disappeared. Krishna still knows. He'll encourage you, but it won't be a very happy existence. Krishna doesn't encourage you saying, my dear soul, you made the right decision. You left the association of devotees, you stopped the process, and all you can expect is a happy life full of material sense gratification. No, we came to the Hare Krishna movement because it wasn't a happy life full of sense gratification. But if we go back to it, it's the same old thing. Punat punas charvadit charvanana. Then we'll just wind up chewing the chewed again until we come back to Krishna again. You may physically leave the spiritual master, but you can't leave the super soul in your heart. At least he won't leave you. So if you don't have a relationship with the spiritual master, it's probably because you don't want to have a relation with the super soul in your heart. So as Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, first you actually give up your relation with Krishna, and then it's manifested you give up your relation with the other devotees, including your initiating guru and your Shiksha gurus. As they say, it's nothing personal. You just don't like Krishna. You don't like your, it's not necessarily a personal offense against your spiritual master. You just don't like Krishna, that's all. You want to be Krishna. And if you close to the spiritual master who keep on reminding you about Krishna, that's very uncomfortable for someone who wants to get rid of Krishna. Is that all right? Does that answer your question, Agnihotra? All right. Thank you very much. Большое спасибо. Dziękuję. Gracias.
Thank you so much, Guru Maharaj.
Prantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada. Gaur Premanande.
Hari Hari Bol.
Prahladananda Swami Maharaj ki
Jai.
Gracias. Thank you, Lavanga Lata.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.